I've been looking everywhere for you. Hyrule is under attack. What are you doing?
Well, excuse me, princess. I've been listening to Virtual Theater's episodes all about the Legend of Zelda cartoon. They're both hilarious and insightful.
Okay, Link, I guess you're off the hook. I've heard that Virtual Theater is a podcast that only covers video game movies. Why haven't I seen this episode released yet?
Because this is a Patreon exclusive set of 13 episodes. This is only being released to patrons, along with other great bonus content.
Well, don't just dilly-dally, Link. I know of all the great episodes available for free over at soundcloud.com/virtual theater. But tell me where I can sign up to get these bonus episodes.
Over at patreon.com/virtual theater, of course. You know, princess, I think all this info deserves a kiss.
Not a chance, Link. I gotta go get those Legend of Zelda cartoon exclusive episodes. I'll see you later.
Well, excuse me. Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined as always by Dakota Lasky. Dak, how you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. Not doing too bad at all, Andy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
You're yawning a lot.
Tired.
You're making me yawn, if anything.
You know what? I was, you just caught me in a yawn right there, because usually you tell a little bit of a story, you let us know how you're doing, and I was like, okay, I got a second to yawn here, but you caught me red-handed right there. Yeah, I'm a little bit tired. The new puppy is, he's keeping us up, but it's all good. He's super cute, so it's super worth it. So, but yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I actually rolled credits on Metroid Other M yesterday. So I have a lot of notes, and I'm very, very, very excited to talk about it next week. So next week we're going to focus on the story. Week after we'll do the gameplay. And I have a lot of thoughts about this game, and I'm really looking forward to that, actually, a lot.
I don't have anything to add to that because I'm not. I'm not looking forward to it. I still have to play it, and I have to make some time in this coming week to play some Other M, which I cannot believe that I'm saying that in 2021.
That's enough. You know what? Here's a small sneak peek for next week. Maybe for next week, because it's more so the gameplay. The gameplay is, you know what? It could have been good. I'll throw that out there, but we'll save that for
I don't know. I hate the discussion of like it could be good if it was better. Blah blah. Like a ton of things that are bad could be better, but it doesn't. I think potential should never really be in the discussion, because like it isn't good. It isn't. It didn't do that thing. Other M. I'm gonna play it though. You know what? I'm gonna give it the fairest of shakes. I promise. So, we'll see how it goes.
That's good.
Yeah.
And we'll have a good talk about it. I'll rein in Dak a little bit here, and we'll have a.
No, you won't.
We'll have a good chat. But let's talk about the Nintendo Direct that just happened here. Mercifully, Nintendo finally gave us some news to talk about on this show, even if there was no Metroid news.
What Nintendo Direct were you watching? News? There was no news. This Direct sucked.
Yeah, there was a lot of good. It did not suck.
It was one of the worst Directs. It was one of the. I have realized that Nintendo. This is once again where there's a complete discrepancy and like huge contrast between the Nintendo's perception of something and the audience or the consumers or the fans' perception of something, right? For Nintendo, a Nintendo Direct is just like sending out a memo. Like they just put out information. It doesn't matter to them. This was the first Nintendo Direct in forever, so everyone's like, oh my god, this is going to have like some amazing stuff. It has to. There hasn't been a really like true Nintendo Direct in forever. And it had nothing. It had nothing at all. Because Nintendo doesn't think about Nintendo Directs like that. It's like oh yeah, whatever, here's some new information. Like they weren't planning on this being a really huge, grandiose thing just because it was the latest Nintendo Direct or the latest one in a long time. And sure enough, we got absolutely nothing. It sucked, and it was a huge waste of my 50 minutes. So yeah, I don't know what news you're talking about.
Did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed today? Did somebody steal your
lunch money? I had a pretty normal day, but I definitely don't agree that Nintendo Direct had news of any other than there are a couple things that were pretty noteworthy, but it was certainly one of the worst.
If somebody's picking on you, let me know and I'll talk to them. I can take care of this for you.
I just think it was a pretty subpar Direct. It was one of the worst ones that I can think of.
Oh boy. Well, let's get into it because I disagree. I think that this Direct had some pretty good stuff. Was it like the best Nintendo Direct I've ever seen in my life? I don't think so, but it had a ton of like really, really awesome stuff that I'm really looking forward to. So I am thankful that we got the first Nintendo Direct in over 500 days. There is a lot of stuff that we'll talk about here that I'm looking forward to, but of course there was no Metroid news, and I don't know how surprising that is. I think that I wasn't surprised, but I was like maybe slightly disappointed. I thought that, it seems like there's been rumors of like a new 2D Metroid game that have been swirling around for like the last 2 years, which makes sense because I mean, like, Mercury Steam's got to be working on something. I think that the chances of going into the Direct, I thought the chances of new Metroid being shown were like maybe like 5%, like maybe 10% if I really, really wanted to be optimistic. So I wasn't surprised that nothing was shown, but I think that you can still be like a little bit disappointed or just like, damn, like I didn't think it was gonna happen, but I was hoping, and when that didn't happen, it still stings a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't really think that there was gonna be any Metroid news either. I kind of like played it up a little bit on Twitter, but that's just like kind of the fun of speculation, that's just part of it, right? Like you kind of like, oh, I hope there's some Metroid stuff, and just, if there is, that's great. If there isn't, well, you get over it in a day or two and you move on with your life, right? I don't think it's a big deal to get excited over something, even if it's not going to really happen. Because if it does, then like, oh my God, that's sick, you surprise yourself. Yeah, I would say probably like a 5 to 10%, probably 5% is, the most realistic. Not just we're just throwing out numbers, but like that seems pretty right to me. Like, yeah, I didn't really expect anything, especially because if I remember correctly, they were focusing mostly on games that were coming out like this year or first half of this year, right? Like quarter one,
yeah,
quarter
like
two.
In the next 6 months,
yeah, quarter three, yeah, stuff like that. So like that's nobody's expecting Metroid Prime 4 in that time. I don't think it's necessarily out of the question for them to like shadow drop or like quickly drop like a 2D Metroid like and announce it 5 to 6 months ahead of time, and like that could have fit in that window. But at the same time, they didn't do that, so I'm not surprised. Yeah, like
I agree.
I think as a Metroid fan, like you can kind of go into it in a fun way, like, oh, I hope we get some Metroid Prime 4 news, we get something. But at the same time, I think everybody was pretty certain that we weren't going to really get any Metroid news, and that if we're going to hear anything about Metroid Prime 4 or Metroid 5 or another 2D Metroid or whatever it is, Metroid Prime Pinball 2 or whatever, wow, something like that, we're probably going to hear about it, sometime this summer at the earliest,
I would agree. I think that... So one of my main takeaways from this Direct, and you kind of alluded to it earlier because you falsely said that there was nothing, but there was some stuff that was obviously held back for this Direct. And, I was covering this for Zelda Dungeon, and if you notice, they did not explicitly say Zelda's 35th anniversary once during this show. And obviously, they didn't explicitly say Metroid's 35th anniversary either. So I'm pretty confident that in the next couple months, we're going to have like a Zelda-specific Nintendo Direct that's going to take place, just like the Super Mario one did. I don't know that I would necessarily
it's not going to happen for Metroid
specific.
Yeah, it's not happening for Metroid, yeah.
I do think that, we were talking about E3 a couple weeks ago on the show, and I do think that there is going to be a Nintendo Direct in and around that time. If it's part of E3, if it's just part of something else, if it's part of nothing, if it's just the next Nintendo Direct, whatever, I think that it's going to be in and around that time, and that's where I could see them saying, like, either, we have this new 2D Metroid that we've been working on, or maybe they finally pull the trigger on Metroid Prime Trilogy. I think Metroid Prime 4 in 2021 is out of the question. I don't see that happening. But I do think that we're going to have another Nintendo Direct probably in June or in and around that time, and it's going to be like a big, full-scale Nintendo Direct, and they are going to show off some... I mean, they're going to show off a ton of stuff, and I think that the chances of Metroid being in there are... Like, again, they're not impossible. Like, they're not 0%. Are they 80%? No, I don't think so. But I think that it's a decent shot that we do see a Metroid game of some kind later in the year. And it might make sense if that was, like, the October or potentially even the September release. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I think at this point we've been waiting for the Metroid Prime Trilogy to come out on Switch for so long now that it's like it could come at literally any time. Like Nintendo could tweet about it tomorrow and be like, "Hey, this is available this week or next week," right? Like there's almost no difference. Like they clearly don't care like when it drops. And we've been waiting for it for so long that like there have been so many opportunities where they could have dropped Metroid Prime Trilogy and it'd make a lot of sense and be really hype, and then it never happened. So those moments could be coming in the future, and I don't feel any more expectant of it happening then as I do it happening 5 minutes from now. Nintendo could just tweet it. Nintendo could send me an email in 2 minutes, be like, "Hey, Metroid Prime Trilogy is on the eShop. Go get it." Like they don't care. So I don't know. At this point, I don't even think that there's a stronger chance that Metroid Prime Trilogy or Metroid or whatever will show up in that big Nintendo Direct as it would in some small Nintendo Direct like or one like we had last week or whatever, Like that's how I kind of feel at this point. Like there have been so many opportunities and we still haven't gotten Trilogy or news on Prime 4 or news on Metroid 5 or whatever it is. That at this point I'm just like, hey, whatever. I'm done kind of like getting expectant for certain dates. I'm just like, okay, like whenever it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, whatever. Like which sucks because the longer that these games don't come out, like I think there's going to be less hype for it. I think less people will care. There's like a lot of good opportunity to get the trilogy out to people now on the Switch who have a Switch, right? Not really sure what they're waiting for, but maybe they know better than I do. They're the IP owners. Who am I to say what to do with their franchise? But yeah, I'm hoping that we hear something soon because once again we get another Direct where we get absolutely no information. And at the very least, the trilogy doesn't even need to be in a Direct. Just say something about it. I really don't think we're going to get, like you said, Metroid Prime 4 in 2020. I think everybody agrees with that. But a Metroid, like a 2D Metroid, I could see being announced like this summer or sometime in the next couple months for a later in the year release because that's not like a game. Even though it would be a big game for Metroid, it wouldn't be, in the grand scheme of things, a huge game. Something that they would need a ton of build up towards. You know what I'm saying?
I think that a new 2D Metroid would occupy the same kind of release that like a Link's Awakening did a couple years ago, or like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 did, where it was a big game, but it wasn't like the big game of the year. Like I think that they'll have something obviously in November, like a big game for November, and I don't know what that is right now. But yeah, we'll see. I think that my running theory, at least with Prime Trilogy, and I think our pal Doominal said this too over on Twitter. I think that what they're waiting for is for somewhat of a concrete plan for Prime 4 before they release that. At least that makes sense to me to say like, okay, so if internally we have a projection of, let's say that Metroid Prime 4 is going to come out in summer 2023. Let's just throw that ballpark number out there. It makes sense to me that they're just like, All right, you know what? Here is Metroid Prime Trilogy, and it's coming out summer 2022. So you guys have a year to get acquainted with the Metroid Prime games and realize why you should care about them, realize why this is such a big deal. Because 90% of the people playing Metroid Prime Trilogy on the Switch will probably have never played Metroid Prime Trilogy before. And so I think that is the reason that they haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. For a 2D Metroid, I mean, maybe they're not even making one. Who knows, right? Like maybe Mercury Steam is doing something completely different that we don't know about. But I do think that it makes sense that they're working on a 2D Metroid. So yeah, I could see that being 2021. I could realistically see that being 2021. I would be disappointed if it wasn't, or if it didn't turn out to be true or didn't turn out to be happening. But I wouldn't be like absolutely shocked either. So I think that's kind of where we just are as Metroid fans, where it's like, you get cautiously optimistic, but we're not super, super shocked if nothing happens, because, you kind of get these long cold spells in between releases. And, this is going to be, we're coming up on 4 years since Samus Returns here pretty quick. So, yeah, you know what? I could see that game coming out in 2021, although I do think that it would be announced, like I said, in that E3 time period Nintendo Direct, because I think that they would make a big deal out of a new 2D Metroid, or at least put it into like their main presentation. Metroid Prime Trilogy is something I could see them just doing, kind of like what they did with Paper Mario or Age of Calamity, where it's like, here's the trailer, it comes out in 3 months, and that's totally fine. And I think that would be totally fine for Prime Trilogy. So yeah, I think we do have that on the horizon. Eventually, somewhere.
Here's my Metroid conspiracy theory. I think the reason why they haven't released Metroid Prime Trilogy now, and why they won't release Metroid Prime Trilogy for a while, is because they're going to pack it in with Metroid Prime 4. That's what I think is actually going to happen. That they're going to release Metroid Prime 4 with Metroid Prime Trilogy as its whole game. You'll be able to play like all 4, or like they'll release them at the same time. I think that's why, because they think that it'll sell better by releasing it around the same time as a new Metroid Prime game, and or they think that maybe the older games, while still good, might be like a bit too outdated for like modern, I don't know, like today's casual gamers. Like the controls from the first 2 games, like that it doesn't have like true dual analog. Maybe people won't like the motion controls. I don't know. Or like they don't think it'll look good. I'm not entirely sure. Like the original games didn't sell as well as I thought. I don't think that. I'm thinking maybe that's what they think. Even if they were to update the controls for this trilogy. So, but what I really think is actually that they're gonna be packing it in with Metroid Prime 4, releasing it around the same time, because they think it'll either be beneficial for the Metroid Prime 4 package if they, package it in with that, or if they release it around the same time, they think it'll sell better by releasing it at the same time as Prime 4 coming out. So that's my theory. That's my conspiracy theories. That's the reason why they've been waiting this whole time.
You think so? In this theory, is Metroid Prime 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the same cart?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like either they put Metroid Prime 4, release the game with 1, 2, and 3 included on the same cart, or they release Trilogy as its own thing, like as a separate package, but release it around the same time as Prime 4. Like either one. I don't think like that's really like the pivotal point of what I'm trying to make here. Right? Like the point is that I think like releasing it around, like they're waiting for Prime 4 to be ready is what I'm saying. Not like
right. That's what I said. Yeah, I think that
right. Well, whether or not they include it in the game itself is not like they could, or they might release it as a separate package. My point is I think they're waiting for Metroid Prime 4 to come out, and that's why we haven't gotten Trilogy yet.
Yeah, I agree with you that I feel like when they have an internal date for Metroid Prime 4 and they're like 365 days away, then it's going to be like, all right, let's release Trilogy now. I feel like there is like there is zero chance that the games are packaged together.
I don't think that's a zero chance. I definitely don't think that's
that theory is ludicrous, because then you're just flushing money down the toilet of like you can sell the trilogy
I don't
and you can
think
also sell
that
Metroid Prime 4.
I think that they don't think releasing it on its own would sell enough to be worth doing it unless they did it by putting it into Metroid Prime 4. That's what I think they think.
That is ludicrous.
I don't necessarily think so. I think they might think that by releasing it with Prime 4, it might add to that package, or you release it around the same time, the sales would go up. I mean, if you really look at the all-time sales for Metroid, it's really not that high. So like for them to really put out Metroid Prime Trilogy, I think it really has to be financially worth it for them. So they're probably waiting for Metroid Prime 4 to come out. Again, I don't think that it's probably going to be packaged with Metroid Prime 4 itself. I'm just saying, like, most likely they would release it as its own thing, obviously. But like, I think they're waiting for Metroid Prime 4 to come out. Like, just how like they released Metroid Prime 1 and Fusion like around the exact same time when those originally came out. I think they might do like Metroid Prime 4, Metroid Prime Trilogy coming out on like the same day or same weekend or same week or something like that as separate games. Fine.
Okay, if it's a separate games, it's not.
You're getting caught up on whether or not it's in Metroid Prime 4. That's not what I'm trying. I don't know why you're getting so caught up on that. That doesn't matter. Fine, it's not in Metroid Prime 4. I don't know why you're so caught up on that. Let's say they're releasing.
That's because it's ludicrous. You're suggesting that they're going to come out together.
That's not the important. I just said it's not the important part of what I'm talking about. Who cares what? Okay, fine. Let's forget about that. They released Metroid Prime Trilogy as its own game cart, and then they released Metroid Prime 4 as its own game cart, right? Okay. They released Metroid Prime Trilogy around the same time as Metroid Prime 4. That's what I think they're doing. They're waiting for that to come out. They're going to do like a Prime 1 and Fusion kind of deal. That's what I think they're doing.
I don't think so, but that is less ludicrous than what your initial suggestion was. But let me tell you something about Metroid Prime Trilogy. Let me tell you something about Trilogy. So, one of the big highlights for me for this Nintendo Direct was Skyward Sword HD. Skyward Sword is one of my favorite games, like, ever. That's such a fantastic Legend of Zelda game. Everybody kind of dumps on it, but I think that they dump on it unfairly because of the motion controls and, like, the big catastrophic E3 reveal that it had, and, like, there's just a lot of other stuff that went into Skyward Sword that wasn't necessarily the fault of the game, but people associate with it that make people look on it fondly, is my theory. So one thing, like, they completely revamped the controls for Skyward Sword, which is absolutely huge. You can have a button-only mode where you can go, you can use like the right joystick, basically almost like the C-stick in Super Smash Bros, where like now it controls your sword and you can do Skyward Strikes and all that stuff. And I was watching that and I was just like, that's amazing, because this, I feel like it bodes really well for Prime Trilogy. So like, obviously Nintendo knew that the controls were a problem or outdated or just not feasible for how the Switch was, presented versus the Wii. So I was watching this and I was like, this really gives me hope that Nintendo is just going to be like, you know what? We're just scrapping the entire like Wiimote gameplay of how we did Metroid Prime Trilogy, and we're just going to do dual analog because it's simple, it works. You know what? It would take a little bit of effort to do that, but obviously they put in the effort with with Skyward Sword HD. So I feel like there's no reason why they wouldn't do the same with Metroid Prime Trilogy too. So I was watching that, and after my initial excitement for Skyward Sword HD kind of wore off, I started thinking about Trilogy, and I was like, I think that this actually bodes pretty well for that, and how we hope that game, controls and plays and comes across when it eventually does come out.
Yeah, I was a little confused. Maybe you can help me with this. So like the button controls, like, so how do you control the camera? Like, wouldn't the right stick be used to control the camera instead of like sword strikes? Like, I'm confused about that because that's not dual analog.
So, yeah. So I mean, basically, it's gonna probably, the camera's gonna work the same as it has with kind of like Zelda games of that era, where they didn't have dual analog, but you did have the camera following, and then you would press your I think it was L on the N64 controller, maybe it was Z, and the camera would center behind you, and that's kind of how you use your controls and your camera follows you. It's probably not as intuitive as like dual analog cameras, and it might be a little bit of a learning curve for people that started out with Breath of the Wild, but it still works actually like pretty decent. I played Skyward Sword last year and didn't really have any problems with that, so I think that's going to be an issue that will take a little bit of a learning curve to get around, but once you have it, you're not going to notice it anymore. I mean, like I played Zelda games all my life with that control mechanism with the camera centering behind you. So I feel like And you know what? Some people might be turned off by that, and that's fine. I totally get it. But I feel like the compromise to mapping out the sword on that stick is a lot more important to me than mapping out the camera. Just so that like now there's like so much more people that can play this game, right? Like if you have accessibility issues, you can play this game. If you just like hate motion controls, and I get that, you can play this game, and you don't have to set up your stupid Wiimote bar and your Wiimote Plus and get some AA batteries to put in there, which is what I had to do for Other M, by the way. It was a pain in the ass. Now you can just play like on your couch. So I think that's like a really great thing for Skyward Sword, but also for Prime Trilogy, because it shows that Nintendo is willing to tinker and refine the controls for older games.
Well, actually, if you are if you know, you would know that you actually don't need the sensor bar when you're setting up your Wii. You just need like a lighter or like a candle. You can even use the sun. So you actually don't need the sensor bar. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you on the point that it is a good thing that they're willing to make those control changes. I was confused when they explained the button controls, because they like were talking about the sword slashes on the stick, and that still didn't sound good to me. And it still doesn't sound good to me. Though it does sound, I guess, better than motion controls. I don't know. I'm just used to Breath of the Wild now, so it sounds like a step backwards. And hopefully with like Trilogy, they just make it true dual analog, and that's fine. Or they include dual analog, and then like dual analog with gyro. That'd be really cool. I think that would be likely as well, because a bunch of Wii and Wii U or Wii U and Switch games use that kind of concept too. So, yeah, I mean, I'm probably not going to get the game. I don't know. I'm still Skyward Sword just still doesn't seem like a game I really like. I'm really dying to play. Maybe I'll give it a chance, but at $60, I really doubt it. I'll wait for it to go on sale most likely. And I hope Metroid Prime Trilogy doesn't get caught in that $60 range either, though I have a bad feeling it will be, because
it will.
It will, but I really wish it wouldn't, because I feel like it's a $40 game. At $40 would be way more accessible for more people. The games are at this point over a decade old, some of them approaching 2 decades old. They're not $60 as a $3 game package at this point. So unfortunately, that's probably what they'll be priced out as, and I'm sure Nintendo will get away with it and probably make more money for it, but I wish they were a little cheaper, because I think that would be better for more people. But what do I know? I'm sure they know better than I do. Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you, though. I think the willingness to make those changes definitely bodes well for a Trilogy whenever that happens.
Yeah, I feel like, so they charge full price for the Mario 35th Anniversary Collection, and those were just like really bad like emulations of those games. Like there is no quality of life improvements. So there is like zero chance that if they do these tweaks with the controls in Prime Trilogy like we're hoping, that it's going to be anything less than full retail. And frankly, I'm totally fine with that, because like, there is a lot of work that goes into doing all this stuff and marketing all this stuff and whatnot. So I'm fine with that, but I don't know. I was going to say I can understand why people wouldn't be, but I have a hard time actually with that, especially for Skyward Sword, because like they literally redid the entire control scheme of the game, but I digress. Yeah, that was really exciting to me. It did make me very hopeful for for Prime Trilogy when it actually did come out. And I do think that we're going to hear some more Metroid news later in this year. Like I said, I think we're going to get a Zelda-specific Direct, because there is enough that they held back from Zelda in that Nintendo Direct. Like, they very briefly mentioned Age of Calamity DLC. They really only showed the one trailer for Skyward Sword, and they did mention that Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be shown later at this year at some point. So I think that Zelda obviously has a few more tricks up its sleeve. But I could see Metroid, while it wouldn't get the the big grandiose, it's got its own Direct kind of treatment. I do think that they would acknowledge it. I would hope in some form, even if it was just like in passing in a Nintendo Direct, and say like, we have another game celebrating its anniversary this year. I don't know, maybe.
I doubt it. We'll see.
We'll see. All right, let's talk about some other stuff that took place during the Direct here. Notably, for our show, one of the things that stuck out was Blasphemous getting a free batch of DLC. So there's like new challenges that look super duper hard. There's a boss rush mode, but maybe most importantly, there is a crossover with I think her name is Miriam, and she's from the Bloodstained games, which is also another great inspired by Metroid title that we'll eventually cover here on the show. But this is kind of cool. I don't know that I would ever go back to Blasphemous. I wasn't like blown away with Blasphemous, comparatively speaking to some of the other games that we've done. But I do love that they keep on adding content and refining things, they tweaks and whatnot. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think the indie level of games definitely makes these crossovers a lot more palatable and doable as well, right? And we've talked about crossovers. We'll talk later about crossovers too, like with Metroid and how it kind of works in some ways, kind of doesn't. But like for stuff like this, I don't know. I feel like it definitely works, and takes a good advantage of trying to get that like cross pollination of fans and try to get more people into other games. Like I'd love Axiom Verge to do like that kind of stuff. Maybe I think that would be cool. Yeah, Blasphemous, I enjoyed a lot. I might go back for this. I'm considering it because I thought Blasphemous was pretty solid, though I ended up liking Guacamelee better or more. Blasphemous was a solid game, and I have not checked out Bloodstained, so probably end up doing both, just checking out Bloodstained, and then after doing so, I'll go back to Blasphemous after that.
Yeah, Bloodstained, when I played it on the Switch, had I think it had some performance issues for sure. Like there is a lot of lag. It very much wears its Castlevania inspiration on its sleeve, so I do like that. I don't know that I would go back to that one though either. But I know that this both series have a lot of fans, so I think that it's cool, and I do like that they can have these kind of crossovers and stuff like that. I think like it's pretty neat, and it's not something that you really see a whole lot of. You know what? Actually, you mentioned it, and let's talk about it here for a quick second. I was kind of hoping that we were going to see Axiom Verge 2. That game would probably be more at home in like an indie direct, and I understand that, but I'm just like really excited for this game, and it seems like the release date is like itching a little bit closer. It was supposed to come out fall 2020. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that didn't happen, through no fault of Tom Happ, but I was hoping that we could get something on it. I think that we still have a decent chance to hear something about that in like an indie direct somewhat soon, but that's pretty much the closest thing we have to a new Metroid coming out in the future.
Yeah, you're pretty much right, which is sad to say. So I'm looking forward to Axiom Verge 2, and Axiom Verge was a really solid game. I still think it sucks that we kind of have to rely on indie developers. Not that it sucks, but like that we have to rely on indie developers to essentially get this kind of game, and not actual Metroid games. Just is not the greatest.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's keep it moving here. So I have a fun little bit of trivia for you here, Dak. The last Nintendo Direct, September 2019, 500 days plus in the past, ended with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition as the big reveal and the big game that they ended the show with. This Nintendo Direct starts off with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and a nice little bit of bookending there. Of course, it's not for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 proper, but it is to introduce us to Pyra and Mithra, who join Super Smash Bros. Dak, what do you think about this?
I'm not sure which reveal I thought was more boring, this one or the Byleth reveal, or one I care less about. I mean, this is for Xenoblade fans. This is cool, I guess. It's another anime sword fighter. So from a game I don't really care about, and they're just anime characters. I don't know. This doesn't do anything for me. If you like Xenoblade, that's really cool. Good for you. I totally understand getting a character you want, or from a game franchise you like. Obviously, getting Ridley and King K. Rool and Banjo for me was really hype. So, I hate to be someone who hates on people's character choices. Personally, for me, couldn't care less. Not characters that I wanted to see in Smash. I could name dozens of other characters that I would rather see, but they seem like pretty cool, I guess. And so yeah, I was. It sucked because that happened and that was it. We moved on. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, that's all right. Like, it was just very deflating. And we moved on. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm waiting for the next DLC reveal in a few months. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, that was a reveal, I suppose. Didn't really do anything for me whatsoever.
Well, it seems that nothing did on this show.
This
is
direct
too bad.
sucked. This had
it.
nothing for me, man. I mean, the reveal, I thought it was going to be Xenoblade DLC. And then it was a Smash reveal, so I was like, oh, like, well, that was... First of all, it wasn't even, like, a cool reveal, you know? Because it looked like it wasn't... Like, it didn't have any style to it. It wasn't, like... I was just like, oh, this is some Xenoblade stuff. And then there was, like, a swerve at the end. I'm like, okay, like... you know, like, it wasn't a great surprise. And it just kind of... And then it moved on. Like, Sakurai didn't say anything. We didn't get, like... No, like, oh, we're gonna get this gameplay after this or tomorrow or something. Sakurai didn't even show up. Like, it was, they just moved on. I wasn't hype at all. I think it was even less hype than the Byleth reveal. At least this wasn't the last character reveal of the pack. That would have made it worse. But yeah, that was a pretty lame, a pretty big letdown. Pretty lame for me. But again, if you like these characters, good for you, and I hope you're enjoying them. And I'm definitely gonna give them a try when they come out. I'm sure they look like their character functions look like. They're fun to use.
Oof. Yeah, I like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I like all Xenoblade Chronicles. Pyra and Mithra, I think were cool characters, and it's cool to see like kind of that dual character coming back into Smash. I was like a big fan of the Zelda Sheik combo back in the day, and even like the Samus Zero Suit Samus combo I thought was cool. So yeah, I think that it's pretty neat that they're coming in. I do love that Xenoblade is kind of like continually gotten elevated, I guess, by Nintendo in terms of like its importance as a franchise. I think that it feels like a really good niche for Nintendo as like this big open world like RPG. So I was pretty happy about this. I mean, you've heard the rumors about Pyra for a long time, and she was, I think, one of the more requested characters from fans. So it wasn't like super surprising. As soon as I saw like the port from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I was like, oh, okay, well, like, pretty much every Nintendo Direct starts off with a Smash introduction, so I was like, we're getting Pyra in Smash, so it was a long trailer to get to that, but I still liked it. I thought that it was cool.
Yeah, I guess that I should have known when it was first, but, you know, that was just me, I guess, being a little more hopeful than getting what we got, because I don't know, I mean, like, yeah, you mentioned how there's, like, character swapping, but the Pyra and Mithra look like they're exactly the same. It doesn't look like they have different moves. I might be wrong on that. I'm probably wrong, but like Sheik and Zelda had different moves. The Pokemon had different moves. You know, any character that can swap like that had different moves. They were like a different character. So I didn't see any differences between them.
Different moves,
but I'm sure they have some differences to make it worthwhile. And yeah,
they have different moves and kind of a different Final Smash. Not extremely different, but yeah. We do need that Sakurai video, though, for sure.
We do. I mean, they're just going to be like a big sword character. We've already got a ton of those. So if you love sword characters, Smash is your game now, I guess.
You know what? I was looking at a graphic, and there are 20 sword characters in Smash of like 80 character roster. It's not as much as you think.
No, it's not, but it's like the prevalence of them. There's just something about it. They just stand out so much. I think it's also because the DLC has a lot of them. Whereas, like, obviously, like, yeah, they don't have, like, in the grand scheme of characters, they don't take up a huge portion, but, like, a lot of the newer characters are sword characters. So, like, it's kind of weighted differently. Like, there were less sword characters towards the beginning of Smash, and now they've added a bunch more towards the later game. So, I don't care. There's a bunch of anime sword characters. I don't care. I mean, I got Ridley in the game. I got King K. Rool. I got Banjo. I'm not really mad about who they add anymore these days. It's just it's again another reveal where it's like, whatever.
You know what? I am also like, I'm gonna make a prediction here and now that they are not gonna stop with Fighter Pass 2. There's gonna be a Fighter Pass 3. I'm like pretty confident about that. So even if the ending for Fighter Pass 2 is a little bit lackluster, I feel like that's okay because there's gonna be more. All right, let's go down the list here just really quick, and I'll pick out a few things that stuck out to me, is something that I was really excited about. And I'm going to start off with the absurdly named yet very cool looking Project Triangle Strategy. Dak, I have to assume that you did not play Octopath Traveler. Is that right?
No, I didn't.
That doesn't seem like your kind of game.
Oh no, I mean, I actually, it was a game that my roommate at the time when it came out was playing, and I kind of watched them play it, and I watched streams of it. I never ended up getting around to playing it, but it was a game that I wanted to try, and looks cool. Like a tactical RPG with the different branches, different stories. Just something I never really ended up getting into. I think I tried the demo when that came out. But yeah, when I saw this,
so that was like a tired and true JRPG.
Yeah,
just like a SNES style JRPG,
yeah,
which I kind of love.
This looks cool. This was up the same alley. This I thought was one of the few good parts of this direct, actually.
Yeah, I love the art style, and I love that this is like a tactic RPG now, where it's kind of like in the vein of Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics, and like I'm looking forward to that. But like, oh my god, I've like there must have been some executives sitting around and just being like, how can we make a name that's more ridiculous than Octopath Traveler? And someone was like, I know, Project Triangle Strategy.
I mean, that's the one thing about this is that like this game is so generic, like. The Salt Iron Wars, the characters are like the most generic anime stereotypes. Project Triangle Strategy, like
it's awesome.
No, it's just like I can't do it, man. I can't subject my brain cells to this crap anymore. Like I just can't. Like it's stuff like that. Like the gameplay looks really dope, and I really hope the story isn't bad. But like when I read that, I was like, or like I was watching this, and like, oh my god, like can I really play this game? Like I feel like it's gonna literally destroy the synapses within between my brain cells. It's like it's gonna do something to my neural network, and it's gonna significantly decrease my quality of life. I really do believe that. Like it was so dumb. And I'm like, oh, the game looks really cool, but the story and the writing just is atrocious. And I hate that JRPGs are still like this in 2021, that they can't write this non-cheesy, non-cliche storyline over and over and over again. But I digress. The game looks like really cool, looks like a lot of fun, and I'm gonna try it out.
Hey, you're a tough man to please.
Is it really Lord. That much to ask for decent writing these days? I'm sorry, but no, it's not.
You haven't played the game. You have no idea. Let's move on to something that I hope that you were excited about this. I thought you were. And I'm looking for a pulse in there somewhere. Mario Golf. Tell me that you liked this.
There we go. This is a game. There was this.
God damn it.
This was the only news. No, not only. But this was one of the only bits of news that I cared about from this Nintendo Direct. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for Mario Golf. What is it, Super Rush? Mario Golf Super Rush? Yeah, hell yeah. I absolutely cannot wait for this game. I think I might have pre-ordered it already. It is a day zero buy for me. Like I'm buying multiple copies. I'm buying copies for all my friends. I love Mario Golf. I've been playing that since I was a kid. And I'm very, very, very much looking forward to playing this game with my friends, running around on the green. That looks hype. The story mode, I'm looking forward to all of that. I was so excited for Mario Golf. I'm very much looking forward to playing that.
Ironically, I don't think I will get Mario Golf, although I'm really happy that it's being made. Because I know that there are a lot of people that love Mario Golf. And I was looking this up, actually, and I was surprised to see that Mario Golf on the Game Boy Color is like one of the best reviewed games of all time. It actually blew my mind that game was like so well revered. But yeah, I'm not like a big guy for Mario sports games. Even like Mario Kart, I'm just kind of ho-hum on. I don't know what it is, but I'm excited that I just love that the Switch is like bringing back all of these like kind of these old series that haven't had games in a long time, like Mario Golf or like Pokemon Snap or like stuff like that like fans really want to see, but they haven't seen like forever. So I was really happy about this, and I was happy for the fans of Mario Golf. I actually had a thought too, that I thought that it was kind of weird that Nintendo kept on making Mario Tennis games, but they stopped making Mario Golf, and I don't know why that is, because it always seemed to me that Mario Golf was like more successful than Mario Tennis.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it must not have been, but I don't know.
I mean, they stopped making Strikers too, which is a shame. And I'm waiting for the next Mario Strikers to come out. And I feel like now that we've gotten Power Tennis and we have golf coming up. We're slowly working our way through the Mario sports games that haven't gotten a re-release or a sequel on the Switch or on some recent Nintendo system in a while. And Mario Strikers is one of those games that hasn't been touched yet in quite some time. And
did it ever have a sequel?
It was Super Mario Strikers on the GameCube, and then Super Mario Strikers Charged on the Wii. I want to say it was 2004 for Strikers, or 2002, I don't know, but like maybe 2007 for the Wii. I'm probably wrong on those years, but yeah, there was Strikers and there was Charged, and or Super Mario Strikers, and then there was Mario Strikers Charged. And I love the original game. Charged also has some really cool stuff, but like a lot of gimmicks too, and kind of polarizing, I think. But I love both games. I actually remember one of my first tournaments I ever went to was a Super Mario Strikers tournament at Nintendo World Store, now Nintendo New York or whatever, in New York City. Back when I was a kid, my dad took me with me and my friends, and that was really fun. So yeah, I would love a new Mario Strikers game. Anyway, yeah, that's a good point that they stopped making golf but kept making tennis games. But it seems like they're going back to the golf, and I'm looking forward to playing that. They're not just like making a new golf, like they're trying to add at least like, the story mode again and some other stuff. And, I didn't really get too much into the new tennis game because I saw it was a little bit unbalanced how they made it. And I liked Power Tennis, but I think I played Mario Golf a lot more growing up than I did Power Tennis or, the Mario Tennis games in general. So I'm more looking forward to the golf game, so that's gonna be hype.
I think if I did have to pick a Mario sports game, I'd probably get golf, or maybe tennis would be last. And
I mean, there's Hoops 3v3 for the DS too, which is also an underrated gem of a game with the Final Fantasy characters. Also a sick Mario sports game.
I don't know where Mario Hockey is.
Yeah,
maybe he plays hockey in the Olympics or something like that. But he probably does. But that could be its own game too. But just get Sonic out of there. All right, last thing before we move on here is they ended off the Direct in a hype way. I don't care what you say, Dak. This was sweet. Splatoon 3. And I am like super looking forward to this. Splatoon really works for me. And it's like totally not my kind of game, which is like kind of surprising that I love it as much as I do. Because like it's kind of like it's a shooter. It's definitely multiplayer focused. It's definitely like more competitive style, I guess, than not. In me, I like my single player games. I just like to, I like to do my own thing. But I really do love Splatoon. It's got such style. It's got like really cool concept, really good gameplay. I think that Splatoon 2 was really great, and like the Octo expansion that came with it, which was single player, it was like one of the funnest like Switch games that I've played. And I was like, man, I would like totally love just like a platformer shooter version of Splatoon. So I'm hoping that is like packaged in with Splatoon 3. It looks pretty cool. We didn't see very much of it. Actually, they showed off Splatoon 3, and I was a little bit surprised because it's obviously not coming out within the next 6 months. But I feel like that's okay. You do want to have a big game to end the show with. And I was pretty hyped on this. So I left happy with the Nintendo Direct because we had Skyward Sword, and then we went right into Splatoon. So I left on a high.
Yeah. That didn't do anything for me either, sad to say, which was disappointing. Because I was a huge fan of Splatoon when it first came out in like the first game. But I don't know, just I guess we didn't see enough of it for me to really get too excited for it. Because like Splatoon 3 was like an inevitability, right? I don't think anybody was going to say that Splatoon 3 wasn't going to come out. Like obviously they were making Splatoon 3 as quick as they could. And honestly, it looks way too much like Splatoon 2, which looks a lot like Splatoon 1, to be honest. Like, it looks still like the same game. It really doesn't look very different than the previous two games. It's coming out on the Switch, so it's pretty much going to... It looks like another expansion for Splatoon 2 rather than its own game, at least to me. And I haven't really gotten hooked back on the gameplay in Splatoon for some time. Obviously, the Switch Online really doesn't make me want to play the game either because it's still really trash, and like the netcode's bad for the game, and the and and all really what goes into the online experience is not great. It's not as bad as Smash, right? But it's certainly not great for Splatoon either. And I think I just kind of fell out with like my friends stopped playing it too, so I didn't really want to play it by myself. I never really got into like the solo queue or like the single player aspect of the game. I was really always into the multiplayer, which I still think is really good. The core aspect of Splatoon is so awesome and such a good game, but I just the package itself, what it's built into, has always been lackluster and held it back. Like Splatoon would be so good on PC. Unfortunately, it's not. So yeah, this was another thing where I saw Splatoon 3. The trailer didn't do anything for me. I'm kind of over the whole Splatoon style. It doesn't really do anything for me. Like the Inklings and their whole thing kind of not much for me anymore. I don't really like the Splatoon music either. And then I guess the implications of the trailer is I don't know, this apocalyptic Splatoon world, so now everything isn't colorful. It looks all gray and drab, like it was made in Gears of War 2007 or something. I don't know. It didn't look really great, to be honest. I thought it looked kind of bad. It didn't look that good to me graphically. So I was, and the gameplay looked pretty much similar. So I was like, oh wow, that was kind of disappointing too. And that was right after Skyward Sword, which I also didn't care about at all, and I'm certainly not going to get. So yeah, I really hate to be the big bummer here. I just thought this direct sucked. It had nothing for me. I thought all the reveals were so unceremonious and lacked a lot of hype, and really didn't do much other than Mario Golf. I thought was awesome. And I also thought Ninja Gaiden Trilogy is going to be really cool. But again, it was just kind of announced and then they moved on. Everything felt kind of like they didn't put much effort into really making a lot of fanfare behind a lot of this stuff. And I think that carried over to how much I cared about every individual announcement. So yeah, that didn't do much for me. And that sucks because I love Splatoon, or used to really, and I've kind of fallen out of love with it. And that didn't really do much to make me want to get back into it. So yeah, that didn't do much for me, and I have so many other shooting games to play, man. It's to take out my Switch to play Splatoon, I feel like I almost can't. I have so many other better options for shooting games these days that I didn't, I guess, maybe when Splatoon originally came out. So we got to play sometime though, but yeah, that wasn't a super high note for me. It kind of ended like that. I was like, oh, that's it. That was 50 minutes. Okay, and that was it.
So hold on. So they formatted this Nintendo Direct the exact same way that they formatted every other Nintendo Direct, where you get a trailer or you get an announcement, but this one stuck out to you for not having enough pomp behind the releases.
Yeah, I guess certainly it has to do with the games they announced too, for sure. I'm sure I would have felt a little different if they announced or showed off Metroid Prime 4 or Breath of the Wild 2 or Super Mario Galaxy 7 or Donkey Kong 128 or whatever the hell, right? So I'm certainly it has to do a little bit with that too, but I think it's just something I've realized over the years of Nintendo Directs is that I think that's just what they become too, because even back in the day, Nintendo Directs and other Nintendo these video formatted reveals and events they would do, I feel had more character. They had skits and they had appearances by all different people and a lot more, I don't know, energy. And nowadays it just feels so flat. They just oh, here's a game. Oh, here's what'd you think about that? Oh, here's this game. And here's another one, and then it's over.
You know what? Actually, I'm willing to agree with you on that. I think that after the passing of Satoru Iwata, it definitely didn't have the same charm. So I'm willing to agree with you on that.
And so because it doesn't have that kind of stuff anymore, when you then also don't have the big games that people come to expect from some of these directs, it almost has it just feels very empty and shallow to me. Again, if this had Metroid Prime 4, Breath of the Wild 2, stuff like that, it would alleviate that a little bit because of just the scale of those games, right? But even then, I feel they would have been presented in a flat way, in a way. They literally just came out hey, Breath of the Wild 2, we're still working on it, but we have no news. And I appreciate the transparency, but it's this is Breath of the Wild 2 that we they got nothing. They have nothing to hype us up for this. They have nothing at all. They have Skyward Sword HD. That's it. Oh my God. They've gotten it just felt like
I feel
such
like
a
that
waste
was
of
your
my time.
like you can't go in expecting Breath of the Wild 2 and Metroid Prime
No,
4.
no,
Those are kind of like
I'm not
the fabled games.
I'm not expecting
you know?
both of them. I was just using them as examples. I'm saying that like if those types of games were included in this direct, certainly the direct would have felt like a larger deal. It would have felt like a bigger deal, but it didn't have those things. So because it lacks also that kind of character, it feels overall like a shallow experience. No, I wasn't expecting Breath of the Wild 2. I wasn't expecting Metroid Prime 4, but like everything is just so flat. It's like they just like give us the information. They just slop it into the troughs. Like, here you go, and eat the info up. And like there's no, I don't know. I can't even get hyped for it anymore sometimes. Like that direct was so like it was disappointing, but it was more like, when like I wasn't mad, I was just disappointed. I felt like deflated, like the wind was out of my sails a little bit. And I guess maybe because not that I worked myself up for Metroid Prime 4, but it was just Nintendo in general. It's like, what am I waiting for? Like, what am I anticipating? Almost nothing. Like I have nothing to look forward to. And they don't do a good job of giving me things to look forward to. Like, they should be giving me something for Metroid Prime 4. Like, I complain about 343 and their Halo Infinite, like, release, right? But at least they give me screenshots of something, even if it's, like, a corner of dusty, like, map. They give me something, right? They give me something to look at, a frame, an audio clip, like a blog post, anything. Like, anything at all. Nintendo does nothing, and it sucks.
I like hard disagree with you here. Like, what's better, to have like a slow trickle of like, we've hired the new janitor, here's one new screenshot, or to have like the hype build up and build up and build up, and finally you get that trailer? Let's just end on that. We're gonna be back next week for our Metroid Other M show. We're gonna try and be a little bit more positive that week, such as we can, and I'm looking forward to that because it was there was a lot of really swirling stuff. Lots of different things to talk about. So, and you know what? Next week is going to be our 1-year anniversary too. So I'm jazzed about that. Or I think it's going to be our 1-year anniversary. Maybe it's the week after that. I don't know. But either way, we're going to get out of here for this week. I hope that you guys enjoyed the Nintendo Direct. Keep on hoping for some Metroid news. It's got to be coming eventually. We know that they're working on something. We know that Prime is in development. So, we keep waiting, as Metroid fans do. That's it. That's all. We are going to get out of here. Make sure to check us out over on Twitter, at Omega Metroid Pod. I am at Spateri316, and Dak is at DakCity_. And make sure that you check us out over on Podbean, iTunes, Google Pods, wherever you get your podcasts. Go and like and subscribe. And we will see you next week. Take care.